Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm just a casual sim racer, and today I want to show off a brand new piece of kit from Race Sim Engineering, a new company entering the sim racing hardware market for the Fanatec CSL Pedals. This kit adds an accelerator / I'm using it as a brake modification to the brake pedal or accelerator pedal, and a clutch kit modification that is added to the clutch pedal. Let's go over cost at the beginning right here. So I paid roughly 90 pounds, and I think with shipping and everything came about 105 pounds shipping tax to get it to here in California. Then of course for the 3 pedal set from Fanatec, that comes to about $120 plus, then you get shipping tax about 135. So all told, this setup right here, which includes a accelerator, which is stock, a modified brake pedal, and of course the modified clutch pedal, around $240 to the door. So now let's look at some of the features here up close. First, let's look at the construction, and that's going to be, you can see it's a machined, I assume steel, and it's very sturdy, and you can push on it. There's no issues here. There's some 3D printed washers here, and then also at the bottom here on each side, and those are how he connects it. I mean, the nice thing is you can see here on the unmodified accelerator pedal, the holes that came with the CSL pedals have just opened up kind of a easy third-party marketing for companies, which is awesome because you have Fanatec CSL pedals, which you can add the clutch, you can add a load cell brake. That variety is great, that ecosystem, but even more so is it opened up a third-party ecosystem for modifications and things like that, which is fantastic, and Race Sim Engineering is one of the latest to enter into that. So let's get into the brake first. So this kit was designed for the accelerator with the idea you'd be using the load cell brake for the middle, but for me, we're talking, first of all, that's way more expensive. We're talking over $300, more in the realm of close to $350 to use this kit and a load cell brake. No, around $320 probably. Anyways, that is something to me that is not super cheap. You can get some pretty nice, you start looking at higher end pedals, or at least saving up towards higher end pedals once you start getting over that $300 mark. Now, could you, if you buy the CSL pedals by themselves initially, 2 pedal set, and then you just slowly keep adding to them? Yes, and that's something fantastic about them. But I think one of the good things about this kit, when you're just talking about the brake / accelerator mod, it mostly adds stiffness, which is fantastic. I'm using this spring here. It's the second stiffest spring that I received, and it has washers here to hold it. That was added because I received an early kit, so those were actually sent to me afterwards. And that is nice. I mean, it wasn't like the spring moved a lot as it was, but this just stabilized it even more. So that spring ain't going to be moving around when you're putting load onto the pedal. You'll see, essentially you get this stiffness added. It's a linear stiffness. It's not got any change in the it's not like a clutch. It's just gets a little firmer as you go, but it's also a spring. It's not like where you're using the elastomers where the more you push, it's almost an identical increase in the stiffness. No, it's about the same force as you go down through the pedal. And I'm going to go a little later in the video, I'll go through some of the differences in forces versus the stock CSL pedals and the pedals as modified by Race Sim Engineering. You'll notice here, this swivels. This will come up as you compress the pedal, and that will just allows for less friction and a very smooth action. There's also a white washer that plugs into the end on both of them that has some oil on it, and that just adds for even more smoothness. And you'll notice the end comes, the metal rod comes out the end, not too far, not like it's going to jam into something. So the brake kit / accelerator kit, nothing super special about it, but I think it's extremely well done, and it definitely adds that stiffness to it. One last thing I want to point out is the adjustability. you'll see that there's these bolts. This one's got a lot of easy to grab, very tactile, big, and that as you turn it, I can compress the spring. That's going to, side effect is going to shorten the distance, but that initial press becomes much stiffer because you've already begun to, to compress the spring. And then once you've adjusted that part, you can tighten it off with the smaller bolt there. I like to keep it at the maximum distance, just for ease of use. I like that. The thing for me is, I think the biggest selling feature of these pedals over something like a load cell, and why I use them on the brake, you have that range of travel. You're not going to get that, especially in the Fanatec CSL pedals, unless you modify the load cell for them. You're not getting much travel at all. So this is really nice. I like it for classic cars. And that's one of the things about these pedals. Do I think the Accelerator brake kit by itself justifies a standalone purchase? For me, it's a little bit 50-50. It's nice to have, but is it worth spending the kind of money? I mean, I'm sure standalone it's going to be cheaper. You can check out the links down below. I know prices can change a bit since they've just started publishing things, and I know their offerings are going to change a bit too over the coming months. Different items, changes, new items being offered. But do I think this, as it is standalone, maybe for, I don't know, half the price, a third of the price, is worth, still getting? It really is going to depend to you. For me, it's a little bit of a toss-up. But the part that I think makes this kit really compelling is if you're looking for more of that authentic feeling of maybe an older car, classic car, or road-going car. You want that travel like maybe you do in one of those cars in real life. Well, this clutch right here is pretty incredible. So normally the clutch is completely linear, just like all the other pedals. Pretty soft, pretty, just me. I mean, that is pretty easy to push. But when we're talking about the clutch pedal, that's where things get really exciting. So we have a lot of adjustment points here. That changes the bite point and also changes the stiffness as a result as well. More bite, less stiffness. They recommend putting it in that second hole, and I also agree. I recommend doing that as well. It definitely seems to have the best bite point right about here, that last bit. It's nice, but it's not too early on. It's not like linear. If you go to the bottom, it's almost linear. So for me, I definitely really like that. You're going to see as you push it, get about to here, and that last little 10-20% kicks in. And it just feels incredible. When you're driving and you're shifting through the gears with a manual shifter and you're going through and you push this down and you feel that engage, I mean, the immersion's amazing. In my opinion, this is one of the best clutch pedals out there when you add this kit. It's fantastic. This stiffer spring was added later and that transformed it for me. The original spring was a bit too soft, and by being soft, the bite point wasn't quite as noticeable. And so it's now a stiffer clutch with a very good bite point. I mean, I'm pushing this down by hand, but I cannot push this down with one finger. This is a nicely tactile. It's not quite as stiff as the spring that I have on the brake, and that's just because as you get to the bottom, it starts to really get stiff. Whereas this one, it's maybe a little bit stiffer at the start, but then it lightens up there at the end before it gets too stiff, which is nice. And like I mentioned, I'll go over the forces later in this video in more detail. You'll see this guide here comes with it. It's a little crinkly since I've had this kit for a month and I've been using it, and this has just been in a drawer, but you'll see at the bottom of the last page there's some adjustment guides, and you'll also see how the clutch bite point changes based on the adjustments you can make to it. Race Sim Engineering sends some tools to make the necessary adjustments to attach these and then also to modify them. And then I had some different springs. These were the original springs that I had, and I've changed them out for these much better springs here. So really enjoying this kit. I've had it for about a month. It's been fantastic. And why don't we jump to the rig? Alright, so I'm just going to let you listen to these pedals in action for a little bit so you can hear the sound. Just remember one thing, that this microphone is directly upon the pedals here. So they are louder than they will be in actual use. These are not a loud set of pedals. The clutch does make a little bit of noise when it goes through the bite point, but otherwise I would say these pedals are reasonably quiet unless you're in a very particular use case where you can't have any noise. Alright, so now I'm going to dive into some of the numbers behind this and start talking first about the brakes. So the original Fanatec CSL pedal brake is got the foam insert. It starts off at around 3.5 kilograms of pressure, moving to 9.5 and then 17 kilograms to really almost fully depress it. It's not even really fully, because if you were to fully depress it actually, you would actually be damaging the foam. So it just continues to get stronger as you go. It's not a horrible solution to the problem, but it isn't adjustable. It limits the range of motion a bit, and it really isn't the cleanest option. In contrast, when we look at the Race Sim Engineering mod kit for the brake pedal, it starts off at a much higher rate at 7.5 kilograms, and that's adjustable. Remember, if you're willing to sacrifice a bit of that range of motion, it will actually be even stronger. You can get it up to 11 kilograms, or maybe even closer to the 15 kilograms maximum if you really wanted a short throw. So at the 50% mark, you're at 11 kilograms of force necessary to push the pedal, and finally at 100%, 15 kilograms. You'll notice one thing that's important is that 7.5 at the start to 15 kilograms, and this was at the full range of pedal, which is what I prefer personally. And so it's definitely a big improvement overall from the base Fanatec CSL pedal brake pedal. Now turning to the clutch, this is where, like I mentioned before, I think the Race Sim Engineering kit really stands out. And we're talking, this is pretty weak. Like I pushed on the Accelerator pedal, is the same linear action. 3.5 at the start, and then it's 4 kilograms throughout. Really weak, move it with my pinky finger like it was nothing. And so this is something that, in my opinion, it really needs to be improved upon, and thankfully Race Sim Engineering comes through. And we're talking, it's a much stiffer spring, so it's 10 kilograms of force at the beginning. That could be even more if you tightened it down, if you're willing to lose a bit of that range of motion once again. 12 kilograms halfway point, and finally it's going to lighten up after you get through that bite point, dropping down to 11 kilograms, and it just feels really good. Of course, there's stiffer clutches that exist out there if you're willing to go for higher end pedals, but for a lower end, we're talking, remember, $240 and if you already have the CSL pedals already, then it's not going to be that much more to buy the clutch pedal and add this to it, and it really is compelling, at least for me. So yeah, as I mentioned, I've had this kit for about a month. It's fantastic, well built. There've been no issues in terms of construction or use. I've really slammed on them, going through, different pedals. I think it'd be fantastic. I mean, I'm gonna look to get another kit for the Accelerator to just kind of add the resistance, because right now it's just like, I think you get the real stiffness. A little bit weird in that regard. That was probably the biggest difference. So if you're looking to maybe go without a load cell, and you're looking, okay, can I upgrade my Fanatec CSL pedals to match things such as maybe like the Fanatec V3s or something along that line, yeah, you can get these pretty good, and the clutch is going to be great, and you're going to have a much stiffer adjustable brake pedal, and it's really going to be something that you can look into. And as I mentioned before, the clutch kit is really what makes this kit amazing. If you want a great feeling clutch, you have the Fanatec CSL pedals. I really don't think there's very many options that can deliver what Race Sim Engineering is delivering here without having to upgrade to a much higher spec of pedals. So for $240, can I recommend, this setup? Yeah, I really think I can, if, like I just mentioned, for those looking for a good clutch and that adjustability. And the nice thing is you don't have to do it all at once. You can start with the Fanatec CSL pedals and continue to upgrade. And like I said, if you already have them, it only becomes more compelling. So just feel free to check out the links down below. Race Sim Engineering, they're just getting started, so they don't have a ton of products right now, but I'm sure that's going to grow in the coming months, and I know they have some ideas for some innovative products also for the Fanatec CSL range, but then also potentially for other products down the road. This has been great to have you checking by. I want to thank all of you who support me and who subscribe to this channel. You guys are awesome, but most of all, I want to wish every single one of you a fantastic rest of your week.